Hello, dear community, and very welcome at Creators Lounge by AVL. My name is Dejan Jovicevic. I'm the founder of Broadcast, and this is my big pleasure that I can moderate this event today. It's going to be all about open innovation, co-innovation, best practices, do's, don'ts. We have a fantastic lineup of speakers, startups, corporates who are doing amazing stuff together, and really excited to hear about all the news and updates in this context. Let me just give you some organizational insights. We are in a platform virtually. Hopefully you're all on the main stage, and you can find the live stream on the main stage. So you just have to click on your left-hand side to main stage, and you'll be joining us. We also want to invite you to communicate with us, to interact with us, to give us insights, to send us your questions. So if you want to chat with us, you just have to click the chat also on your left-hand side. Just click on that and it will be activated in your tool, and we'll be happy to pass over your questions to the speakers that we have as a follow-up. The next menu point is startups. So if you click on it, you will find a startup map provided by AVL Creators Lounge, amazing startup map of many startups who are collaborating with AVL, and we'll give you some insights on that in a second. And after the event, we have 2 hours of really exciting program ahead of us. We'll have 30 minutes opportunity for networking, and you'll find the networking area also on your left-hand side. So just join it after the event. You'll have opportunity for speed dating, to meet people, to meet the audience. We have approximately, I think, 500 applicants for today, participants, and that's really exciting to have you all with us. Let me move to our studio. Victoria Igla is here with me, team lead of Creators Expedition and one of the initiators of this event. Victoria, welcome.
Hello, and a warm welcome also from the whole Creators Expedition team. We are very happy and excited that today is the day of our Creators Launch event, because we want to take this as a starting point for innovators, creators, and also for startups to exchange and to discuss the topic of open innovation and collaboration together.
We'll see a lot of startups that are working with you, but also external people, corporates that are collaborating with you, and we want to be as authentic as possible. Nothing is scripted. Everybody should say and talk about real experience to share the knowledge and the learnings about the collaboration on different levels.
Exactly. We really want to share key learnings, experiences we have done so far, and also want to know what others have done and what experience others have. And so we invite everybody to really use the networking options, use the chat, and communicate with us.
Broadcasting, for those of you who don't know, is one of the leading media for innovation, and we've been in the field of innovation for almost 10 years, and we've seen a lot. And I believe, and I am really confident to say that you guys are one of the pioneers in terms of method and in terms of how long you're doing it. So I'm really grateful that you're providing this platform for learnings, for, so to say, presentations of different methods and startups. Presentation, before we start, startup map. You can all find it on the startup menu. What is it about?
The startup map is an AVL startup landscape where you can find all the startups we have worked with in the past 2 years. And you get a short pitch and a short description of the startup and also what we have done so far with them.
Perfect.
So it should give you an overview.
Victoria, thank you very much. You'll be coming back to me in an hour approximately, and we'll move on with the program now. And we have our first panel coming up, talking on how to co-innovate as a startup. This will be a super exciting panel. We have 2 guests in our studio and 2 are remote. Martin Wagner from NR Angster is here, co-founder and CEO. I'll ask you, Martin, later to correct me with your name. Anna Maria is with us as well, founder and CEO of an amazing startup that digitalizes humans. Excited to find out more. Ben is with us as well, remotely, and Patrick, the CEO of Left Shift One. I think we have them all with us online, and I'd all like to welcome you with us here. Hi, guys. So we're going to be talking about how to co-innovate as a startup. And obviously, you guys have all worked together with AVL, and we want to have very honest opinions. But before we jump into the discussion, short pitch. What do you guys do, and why is it valuable for you to collaborate with corporates? Anna Maria.
Right, thank you, first one. We develop a human-centered AI platform for the detection, reconstruction, and measurement of human bodies, or like you said, we digitize the human. Our customers want to exchange data, for instance. They want to exchange 1D, 2D, 3D data about the human. They want to transform data from 1D to 3D. They want to synthesize data. They want to have an input of real data for the human. And yeah, that's where we are.
Cool. Martin?
Thank you, Diane, for the format and for your innovation spirit, as always. We are an XRT. We are doing an XR simulation platform, and we are collaborating with many corporates in the automotive field, not only AVL. And our goal is to reduce accidents by providing better ADAS systems. AVL is one of the pioneers in this field and was also working since many, many years as a pioneer and R&D leader. And so we identified some joint opportunities and we are working on it now.
Perfect. We'll talk about the experiences, about do's and don'ts, pros and cons. Patrick, what about you?
Yeah, I'm Patrick, and I'm one of the founders of Left Shift One. We created an AI operating system, an AI platform with different AI solutions, and we create a solution for AVL to get customer feedback in North of America, and this is something what we did in this case, and it was awesome to work together with AVL in this case.
Perfect. Last but not least, Ben.
Thank you, thank you. Great to be here. Super excited about this discussion. Pitstop, I'm the Vice President of Sales and Marketing at Pitstop, and we're taking connected car data and we're leveraging deep artificial intelligence and machine learning to see trends in a vehicle that allow us to predict failures before they happen. Great example would be a battery, where we can start to see trends in a battery that let us down the path of that battery is going to fail in the next couple of weeks.
Let's stay with you. Why do you collaborate with corporates? Why do you collaborate in this case with AVL? What's in it for you?
So the collaboration with AVL has been wonderful. Let me just start off by saying that. We've been working with them and using our deep data science expertise and their customer engagement, and we've been able to see trends in a specific corporation's vehicles that allow us to start writing an algorithm to predict a failure before it would actually occur.
How did the collaboration happen? Did you approach them? Did they scout you?
It was a mixture. We were so we're Canadian-based, and we were on a trip through Canada leveraging the government, and we met with AVL, explained what we were doing, and honestly, the technical team at AVL was really blown away by what we've been able to build, and they could see the use cases and how it could impact their end customers. So the collaboration became very natural, and we continue to work with them today.
What's in it for you, Anna Maria, for example? Are you looking for co-innovation? Are you looking for customer, so the relationship with AVL, both or more?
But for AVL, what's really nice with AVL, as you said yourself, they are innovators themselves. So on the one hand, they are customers. On the other hand, they are, for us, also multipliers. And more than this, I would say there's a lot to learn from companies like AVL who have excelled in working visionary. And also they just have a lot of expertise within the team where we can strive together.
Do you feel as an equal partner in this partnership?
Definitely, because we have our expertise, they have theirs. And I mean, sure, if you look on the papers, we're not quite equal, but they are big, we're a small startup. But if it comes down to how they interact with us, always straightforward, always on the same height. So, yeah.
Patrick, you guys are based in Graz, and you also have in-depth insights in the structure of Creators Expedition. Would you say that that's a good structure for collaborating with startups, and why are you doing it with them?
Yeah, I would say, of course, it's a good structure in Graz because we have one of the highest research companies in Graz as well. So it makes sense to collaborate in the automotive branch with AVL. And the point is, we are a regional startup from here, but I think it makes sense in this co-innovation content work together. So a big company with a small company like us. I think we can bring in the AI expertise and also this agile approach. And so we are also, we feel like an equal partner in this case. And we started with our first AI tool for AVL, and the next tools will follow based on our platform. And I think the important part is that we bring our expertise, and AVL have this domain knowledge, this big domain knowledge in the automotive sector, and it's fine to work together, find a good approach or a good to know a new product. So it's fun for us, yeah.
Martin, you mentioned you are working with a lot of or more corporates. How do you choose who do you work with?
I think there must be a selection process at the startup in place where you assess your corporate partner. And at AVL, we see a strong methodological set based on the expertise of Victoria and all the team, and Sebastian and all the team of Creators Expedition. They have a huge innovation portfolio. And especially, it is important to have a champion in the company as well in the line and in the innovation part of the company. And at AVL, they came to us and we identified a very strong fast track to a customer. And based on this fast track, we have a mutual interest like Left Shift One or like many other partners from the former expeditions. And then I think it's easier to allocate resources internally as well as add value at an OEM or at an automotive company or at a niche leader probably, because AVL is not only working in automotive. People know it from automotive, but there are many, many other industries they target.
What about you guys? What kind of, let's call it, due diligence do you do when you choose your corporate partner? What's important for you, Anna-Marie?
I mean, let's see, I mostly sort based on, do they have money for innovation? So do they really pay for it currently? Or is there anything more visionary where we talk a little bit longer and then maybe there's something happening or not? And they might be multipliers in future. And like you said, for AVL, really, they have a great methodology in place. They have a lot of history in working with startups, but also bringing innovation to their customers. And this is something where there were many check marks in the really fast. The process is fast. We can say they have money. They really want to drive the innovation. They want to bring us to the customer. They want to build something together. And here's the roadmap. Here's how we do it. That's basically how we prioritize them, I would say. It's not that we don't talk to others, but they are further behind.
I think approaching the customer together is a very interesting and tricky aspect. So you really approach customers together with AVL? And how does that work? How do you make, let's say, the regulation around it so that nobody is inferior or superior? How does it work? Can I have some of your insights on that? Whoever wants to, Ben, maybe if I go in your direction. We can't hear you currently, at least not in our studio. Maybe you're muted.
Sorry, we did not jointly approach a customer. We worked with the AVL that was trying to solve a specific customer problem. So that was our scenario. I do know there's a lot of scenarios where we could have jointly, and we may in the future go ahead and pitch customers on specific projects.
Martin, you approached customers together with FL.
Yeah, there are some approaches to customers. I think the most important aspect in this is the start. You have to invest in the preparation session. We had a nice discussion already about it. Invest around 50% in the preparation and in a perfect pitch, like a startup, in a perfect pitch that your customer is happy and understands the mutual benefit of this collaboration as well as the added value. And then in the execution part, it becomes easier because you disclose transparently what you can do and what you can't do actually. And know your blind spots is one of the tricky parts maybe, because sometimes you sell more the vision, but it's, in my opinion, the most important aspect. Do your customer presentation right and work with technical and commercial experts on it. And all partners that we work with have a strong product management in place. And these product management partners allocate domain know-how, and with domain know-how and technical expertise, you get the process and a faster sales cycle. And with this faster sales cycle, you are fast in innovation, and it goes on.
So did I understand correctly? 50% of time before starting goes in planning and preparation, and 50% in execution?
Yes. Yes.
All agree, or do you have different experiences, or does it depend on the project, on the technology? Patrick?
Yeah, you're right. All right. It depends. In the first project, what we did for this predictive market monitoring case, we invest more planning because to find out what the customers wants, how we can deal with the solution itself. So we need more time at the beginning, and now we are on the third, or we discussing about the third project with AVL, and now we are faster. So 15% in planning, the rest is execution. But in the beginning, and this was a good approach to be part of the Creators Expedition program, to find out, to create the right product market fit, and now we have it. And so it depends in which stage, and it depends on which solution do you offer.
Ben, do you have any experience on that? How much time you need for the prep?
Yeah. Well, for us, there was a lot of upfront work in accumulating and acquiring the right data sets to be able to solve this specific customer's problem. So I think there was quite a bit more upfront work on our perspective, but understanding that once we were able to acquire the data, everything went very smoothly and quick.
Anna Maria mentioned the due diligence in terms of financial capabilities, or the serious, do they have funds? Let's take this topic as well, and maybe I can rephrase it in what kind of incentives does it need for this collaboration to be successful? Maybe from your perspective, and then all of you guys as well.
Incentives, you mean like incentives from the corporates, or?
From the corporates, yes.
Well, I mean, I think they have to buy in. It's not so much about how much a POC or a joint project is worth, really, now how much money gets transferred, but how much it's worth to the people within the company. And that they want to provide their hours for it, that they want to provide their thoughts for it, that they are happy to answer your questions, and that there's a contract which says, yes, this is worth something, and we pay that. But more than this, we're really happy to solve this problem together with you. I don't know if this answers your questions for incentive, but yeah, I think that's what's really needed.
Martin?
I think there is, as I mentioned before, if you have a strong fast track to the customer and you're strong on the use case level, your degree of innovation is sometimes lower. So I think you have to get this plan done. What do you want to achieve in 6 months? What do you want to achieve in 12 months and 18 months? Then you're on a very good lane of collaboration. And what's at the incentive level must be in place is that the innovation KPIs work, like number of POCs, number of collaborations, and so on. And the collaboration team works well as the sales or the more customer-oriented team is involved in the collaboration, because on the long term, it's only working with the classic business units that in the organization. And I can recommend every startup to be on both tracks, because in the first step, the innovation team gets you in the company, but you have to be accepted in the line and work prior to this maybe innovation setups also with executives on the business units, that they can trigger you and give you the right points.
Do you look at the commitment of the CEO, of the top of the company as well?
Yeah, it's a strong moderator based on innovation research from WU, for instance. They say, okay, CEO commitment is a very strong trigger for innovation. But often is the case that the champion internally brings the CEO also on track in an innovation field, and at AVL you are sure that they are innovating.
Okay.
Yeah. So in this case it was not that regular, but in other companies, CEO commitment is a clear indicator. Yeah.
It's also needed.
Also needed. Patrick and Ben, your take on that?
Yeah, on point of the due diligence and in incentives. On the one hand, we decide to work together with our partners to bring more innovation on our platform. So we're looking for a project that helps us to innovate in our product world, and on the other side, incentives on both. We can learn how to deal with big companies, and on the other side, this is one point what we bring in. We're coming from the agile development, so we have an experience 400 agile team sprints behind us, and so we can work together in an agile development way that helps also AVL to create products very fast and get really fast feedback. And so this is where we can work together. And also for bigger companies or for other corporates, it makes sense to innovate fast or fail fast. And this is the approach we work together with the companies, and it helps to create pretty cool products.
Ben, do you look at the CEO commitment?
So I just want to point out something that Patrick said, in that him and his organization are able to move fast. And that's something that the startup world can bring forward, which doesn't always jive, so to speak, with the larger companies that don't move fast. As we know, we're all pushing towards the automotive business, and quite honestly, bringing new feature function or content that helps them either build a car faster or add feature sets to a car, it takes years. And so, we find ourselves in that crawl, walk, run oftentimes. And by the way, this is where partnering with an AVL does help. It can help shorten that lead cycle to get something to market. Now, my experience is, getting a CEO to sign off on these, it's, with these big car companies, that's a real challenge. They typically are facing, a multitude of problems on an everyday basis. Now, they may have an innovative mindset. They may, support that, but realistically, a small initiative that provides some innovation to some aspect of their business probably is getting, a little more middle management view as opposed to the upper management.
Let me pick up this topic of moving fast, because stereotypically, one would say corporates are slow, startups are fast. There's a clash of cultures when they collaborate together. What are your experiences on that? Did you have troubles and difficulties in the speed of working on projects, Anna Maria?
We also work with Nokia and Microsoft, for instance, and also in exchange with companies like Telecom Germany and Vodafone, and they can move quite fast. I wouldn't say they are slow, because they have like a big group of people working on one topic, and they can answer 24 hours a day. So I feel like they can move pretty fast. What might be a little bit slower is then when it comes to some execution on the end of projects, then sometimes things get a little bit slower. But I don't necessarily see it, because often startups also are wasting a lot of resources in structuring and methodologies and these things, and makes them also slower. So and so. I'm a little bit divided. I feel like the corporates we work with are moving pretty fast. Also with AVL, it was in a matter of 1 month that we decided to work together.
That's fast.
That's really fast.
Any speed issues with you?
I think with the right people, you do not have any speed issues if you have the right structure and preparation in place.
Yeah.
I think you have to consider 3 points: people, power, and the passion. And passion has to be on both sides. The people on both sides have to get a certain free time. We at NXRT work currently on research-related topics, and a lot of topics that are relevant in the future, and give every employee the chance in there, like Google does, with a spectrum of hours a week to work on relevant topics. I think more corporates should use that, because then you get the productivity right. And what you also need is the power, like the CEO commitments and all the commitments that we have, for instance, at AVL or other corporates, are based on a certain power structure on various levels.
How much structure and how much trust is needed? So do you also have contracts? Do you have contracts in terms of what happens with IP? And how much trust is needed for a successful collaboration? What would you say, Martin?
I think trust is a very strong moderator for this collaboration. I think there are many IP regulations in place. You have to comply and professionalize as a startup company. But in this collaboration, you often have very, very critical project phases where you have struggles to meet all the needs from regulatory, IP side, and so on. And then trust is the key and sticks the collaboration together.
Patrick and Ben, what is your take on the trust issue? We had, especially before, startups who were concerned about their IP being stolen, or are they just being kind of questions for the innovation? What is your level of trust, and what is your level of, let's say, legal security that you want to have in place for such projects? Patrick.
Yeah. Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, I want to add something before to Ben. Ben has right about how to be fast. In the automotive sector, of course, you're creating automotive hardware parts. It takes long, but we are in the software sector, so it's easier for us to innovate. And I want to mention one point, what AVL did with the Creators Expedition Program. This was a pretty smart approach because the Creators Expedition Program is backed by this by the C-level, so all the startups and all the participants of this program can work in another way. This is pretty cool. And from the trust on side and the IP, my real opinion is we are in the software sector and also for machine learning. It's so fast. We have every day new AI models, so it makes not really sense to have the IP. The point is you have to be fast on the market. So we have not really fear about it. So the point is how to create the solution and bring the solution on the market. Then it's easier to sell, and that's the point.
Maybe just another question, because you mentioned the setup of the Creators Expedition is something very valuable and helpful for you to enter the FIL. Would you say that the corporates who don't dedicate a structure that is first entry point, for example, for startups, have it more difficult to successfully collaborate with them?
Yeah, I think so. If you have, when we're working with bigger companies, the point is if you don't have such programs where we can fail. The expectation of big companies, we're coming in, we have AI solution, and we are creating a new product for them, and we're successful. But that not always works. So you need an environment where also startups or AI solutions can fail or we have to change a little bit the solution itself. You need an environment where you can do this and try something.
Mm-hmm. Ben?
Yeah, and I hate to dwell on the speed thing, but I'm interested to how you guys are able to move so quickly. And maybe part of it is what section we're playing in is we're trying to change the way car companies think about repairing vehicles. So maybe that's a little more of a sore subject that takes a lot longer. And because what we find is, the car company wants to try it and see if it works, try it again and see if it works, try it a different way to see if it works. And then they might start thinking about testing it on a smaller subset. So, and that's just our experience. And maybe that is because what we are proposing to car companies is a paradigm shift. And again, that's where working with a company like AVL has been really supportive because when you're thinking of a paradigm shift, you need to have, an AVL on your side, which is saying, hey guys, this right here, this works. This is really cool. Coming back to the original question, which was around, what is the trust level? When you're talking about AI models, it's hard to really patent it and protect it. But what we do is we've got such a head start. We've got such a big pile of data that we've been able to analyze and build and train our models off of. That's given us a head start, and that's why if we just continue to innovate, we'll continue to stay ahead. So, from a perspective of intellectual property, We do find ourselves a little more trusting than we'd like to be, but that being said, when working with big companies, it's a really bad look for them to try and steal your IP.
Where would you say, or let's rephrase, what's crucial to successful collaboration, or where do you see difficulties arising? Where did you have difficulties in collaborating with corporates? What would you do different maybe next time, or what did you do different based on the experience that you had maybe sometime before?
I mean, maybe coming a little bit back to what Ben said. We don't only move in automotive, and that's maybe also why sometimes it's faster. So Ben's story sounds a little bit different there. And what's important, well, to find the right people to buy in and to trust. And I missed out on this trust question, so let me maybe answer here as well. It's really the trust which is important. There are some companies we don't work with at the moment, although they might be really great customers for the future, because we don't trust them. They are very big, and they are partly looking into the same things like we do, and we don't completely trust, just based on the first conversations we had, that they don't just want to totally screw us. So we also moved there first, some side steps, go through not that direct customers, through some OEMs, for instance, just to show, okay, we can do it, and then we go to these bigger ones. And I think trust and the expectation setting. What do you want from me? What do I want from you? Do you have the money? Do you have the people? And do you really have this problem? And then everything is.
Any other difficulties that any one of you had that are worth mentioning?
Yeah, I think that timing is the most important step. You have to get a certain IP strategy right. You have to get the go-to-market strategy right. You have to go very strong on the marketing plan, and then based on that, select the right timing and saying, okay, where are you in a moment of, there's a song of by Queen, Don't Stop Me Now. Where are you in the Don't Stop Me Now stage as a startup, and do you have a complementary advantage for the corporate? And then you contact them, and then it can become a successful, fruitful collaboration where both parties elaborate as actors on the market.
Anything to add, Ben and Patrick? If not, I would move to Q&A. We have some questions from our audience. Which are the most important stakeholders that need to be included to ensure a smooth running pre-seed stage for a startup? So I guess the question is important stakeholders that need to be included when collaborating. And then I think it's a follow-up question on that. What are the criteria to keep in mind in deciding on partnership either with state institutions like universities or private persons or companies? So stakeholders first. Who would you say are the stakeholders that need to be ensured?
Right. I mean, I already mentioned, it depends also on the size of the company. There must be someone with the play money. So either it's the CEO or the CFO, or it's the CTO, or it's a product person who has some play money and can say, okay, we do that, no problem.
Otherwise, you wouldn't collaborate.
Otherwise, you can't. I mean, otherwise, at least don't put too much time in the offer. Then there's the product ownership person who really owns the product and wants to understand what's the ROI for the future. And then there's the business department, which you want to have in the boat as well, to say, like, who really communicates with the customer in the end, who gives you the feedback, how did it work out, what do they really want. I mean, it's not easy to say, like, who is this person really, because every company is different, right? But someone from the product, someone who has the money, and someone who goes out there and gives you more information.
It's interesting that you did mention marketing and HR. Would you get alerted if you were to be approached by marketing and HR departments of corporates? How important is it that you have the product guys, that you have the line and the business side of the company?
Sometimes people from marketing or HR reach out to us. I mean, I'm not alerted. I'm really happy if anyone reaches out. But there should better be very soon an intro then to the product or sales, or from the sales to the product. It's really, the core is kind of someone who sits on the product and says, yes, this is a problem we have, this is on our roadmap, and we have money for that.
Any other experiences?
So I'll comment. One of the things we've found has been really successful when working with big organizations is finding that one champion. And I think you were just kind of alluding to that to some extent. But what you really need to be successful when a large organization is that champion who's willing who first and foremost sees the vision, is passionate about what you're doing, and then takes it to the rest of the organization. Money, obviously, that helps because then that willingness to pay shows a level of seriousness. But truthfully, it's the person who's going to help you navigate large, complex organizations.
Would you say it doesn't matter?
Sorry.
Sorry, but I just wanted to
totally agree with Ben.
Okay, and then I have for both of you a follow-up question. Does it matter on which level of hierarchy this person is? Would you approach it as an assistant, or does it have to be somewhere on the C-level?
So my perspective, and I'm interested in everybody else's, but I think they need to at least be an influencer. A director level person that is trusted within the organization, that maybe has had a previous win. The higher up it goes, as long as that individual is trusted and has the power within the organization. I mean, I don't necessarily think there's a specific level that says that's exactly how it has to work, but it has to be someone who is well-defined within the organization and trusted at all levels.
Patrick?
Yeah, what I wanted to add before is I totally agree with Ben. You need this champion. It's not necessary that he is or she is from a C-level, but the champion needs the power to do some or make some decisions. And the other point is, for us, it's very important. We are working in multidisciplinary teams. What you need to creating an AI solution together with a corporate, to have the end customer, the customer itself, or the domain expert. You need the people that will work with this AI solution, or you will use it. You need this knowledge, you need this feedback to create a great solution in this case. So multidisciplinary teams in the one way, and would say the champion.
Yeah, and Patrick, I think one of the things you're pointing towards is also getting that coaching for you, the startup. I mean, you come in as a startup, you think you know everything, but in order to be successful with an organization, you have to speak their language, you have to understand their structure, you have to know how they buy things. And so having that champion to help train you on how to better work with that organization really is critical.
Can I add something here? Sorry, because there's so much in the discussion. The champion is always really romantic. It's a good idea to have, but also better realize when to move on from a champion, right? I mean, it's really nice, and if the champion is an influencer, amazing. But if the champion is just someone who finds it really cool and would love to have it, but no one in the team catches it, what is a champion worth?
Enthusiasm without power to execute it doesn't help.
Right, so I think it's really important to understand that pretty early on.
I would, Martin, just like to come back to something that Ben mentioned, understanding the corporates. You mentioned to me as well, it's for you very important to understand the methodology, the innovation matrix that they're using. So how much research or how much understanding do you have to develop before you start in terms of processes, their products, their mentality, their culture?
May I come back to the question with the stakeholders, because it fits it fits to the pre-seed company. First, I think you have to do the technology assessment and the self-assessment. Can you add value as a pre-seed company to a corporate, or are you only delivering ideas and are not helping the people? That's the thing where many startups that come to me at WU Vienna, they are having this struggle. From my perspective, education in the field of innovation, and as a startup founder, you have to be qualified like a corporate innovator in case you do B2B business, because you need this systemic thinking, how procurement works, how logistics works, how event work, and how is the company structured. And this, I think, role definition and in the collaboration works in some companies very well, and in others it simply doesn't work. And you, as a startup company, do innovation management work for the corporate. And this can be very dangerous for you because the deals become very resource consuming. Though it can be very helpful because you build a lot of relationships in the company. So to sum it up, the innovation methodologies and getting to know and getting a innovation education also for a corporate methodology help you as a startup founder and I would say is a must if you do B2B business.
So it's rather dangerous if a big brand comes and says, let's do something together and just say, excellent, that's a good reference, let's do it.
Yeah.
Okay. One more issue that we have, I think that's many people are curious about that. Some corporates demand exclusivity in the partnership. Where you have single and multiple partnerships. What's your take on that? Do you have any preferences or experiences on that? Whoever.
I mean, interestingly, the corporates we talk to them very often. They don't. Often from the beginning, I say, okay, there's no exclusivity or so, and then they say, the bigger ones say, that's fine, we don't want it.
Okay.
The smaller ones often start to negotiate, so like the mid-sector OEMs, they think more about it.
Patrick and Ben?
For us, generally, that's a hard no, but there are scenarios where we might be willing to understand what those exclusivities mean.
One more question from...
Yeah, we did some experience about that. Exclusivity, we did this mistake in the beginning with McDonald's. So it's not possible to provide our AI solution to Burger King. That's not good. But after years, we have no exclusivity in this case. Or we tried that we don't have the exclusivity. Otherwise, the company have to pay. The point is, for our startups, we have to scale up, and we need the possibility to sell our solutions.
Maybe final question for our audience, a quick one. Can you tell us experiences on how do you approach partners and corporates? So how did you guys approach, let's say, AVL?
AVL approached us.
Okay.
But for others, well, we would reach out through their innovation platforms or through some pitch contests they have, or through or just find someone within a party,
Any other growth hacks or secret advices?
Well, I think there's a certain awareness phase where you have this pitch and innovation contests. But if you scale up, you have to leave these stages because you are perceived in a wrong way. And then it becomes critical that you have, for instance, the right advisor, that are experienced, have long-standing roles maybe at the corporates, and can give you hints what is the dynamic in the corporate currently, and should you go to invest or shouldn't you? And the third thing would be, and that's the tough one, maybe some startups tried cold calling. Sometimes it works, but in the cases you have a mixture of these methods, and then out of the sudden you find the way and give it a try. That's the...
Anything to add from Ben and Patrick?
Ask them. So in an inbound and outbound marketing.
Okay.
We were part of an incubator.
Okay.
That got awareness from a handful of corporate folks like AVL.
Perfect. Thank you, guys. Time's up. Super exciting, a lot of input. We'll provide these videos as well. Thank you for taking time to speaking to us, and see you soon. All the best for the further collaborations.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So we're moving on.
Bye.
Thank you. Ciao. We're moving on to our next impulse, the art of innovation. Alexander Ulz from Creative Expeditions team is waiting for us. And before we start with him, we'll have a short video to show you, and he'll explain what is it about. Enjoy it, and we'll be with you in a few minutes.
Innovation is a part of the artistic process, and innovation is what AVL does.
A lot of the concept for this instrument starts here with the crystal itself, with the gallium phosphate crystals invented and developed at AVL.
There's a really unique relationship between engineering and the artist. When you write a piece of music, when you create something, it's a reflection of what is going on in our world.
invented by artist Andy Cavatorter and an interdisciplinary team, highlighting unique gallium phosphate crystals developed by AVL. The AVL Cultural Foundation and the Irvine project perfectly show that true innovation can neither be just about art or technology, but is the result of a dialogue between the two. Hi, I'm Alex, and I'd like to tell you a story about the importance of collaboration across domains and disciplines as a foundation of innovation. And together, we'll find out what innovators can learn from artists. The concept of creativity is fundamental to a high-tech company like AVL. The development of new technical solutions and valuable products implies as much creativity and vision as an artist's new creation. Art and science are both charged with critically examining the world, and they add to actively designing a positive relationship between humans and technology. And most of all, envisioning and striving for the best possible future. As we see it, mutually enriching interaction between art, science, and technology is an essential part of innovation. How does this relate to what we do? All of us have individual, personal, and professional backgrounds. We are engineers, we are economists, management experts, founders, musicians, startup mentors, innovators, change enthusiasts, just to name a few. Sounds like a mess, right? So what is it that makes us act as a team, that connects us and that makes us innovative and successful in what we do? It's our know-how, experience, and craftsmanship. And most importantly, it's passion and spirit for innovation and collaboration that we share. We want to be makers who don't take current approaches for granted just because they've been there for a long time. Staying innovative requires a shift in mindset, moving away from traditional methods and behaviors. Big data may help us to be more efficient, but still, intuition and creativity enable truly disruptive innovations. So what is it that innovators can learn from artists? Let me name a few aspects. Artists aim for novelty and for creating the right connections to invent something new. Also, groundbreaking innovations require to break behavioral routines. Artists act human-centric by observing and understanding humans, which is also key for innovators. Artists want to get feedback from their audience. They are craftspeople who think by making, by connecting brain and hand. This is natural to every child and should also be natural to innovators. Complex problems can never be solved by extensive planning. But when dealing with ambiguity and with uncertainty, failing has to be considered an option. Artists trust their intuition, which is also important for innovators, because human intuition is still so much faster than even the best analytical tools. Lateral and interdisciplinary thinking are the foundation of creative arts. But equally important and essential for innovations that are always based on new insights and ideas. Artists are storytellers. They tell stories with and about their art. This is also true for some of the greatest innovations, where the product itself is also the story of the product. Artists often get inspired by others, by co-creating, by sharing, and by challenging ideas, seeing the world with fresh eyes, focusing on what is missing, and creating insane ideas to trigger change is essential, both for exceptional art and also for great innovations. And finally, artists and innovators need to be believers who are passionate about their work. Artists often face rejection, and so do innovators. Therefore, great innovations are always the result of personal beliefs and strong convictions. In conclusion, what is the main thing that innovators and artists have in common? They constantly strive to make life better. They want to meet human desires by finding novel and simple solutions to complex problems. And only by giving sufficient space for new things to happen that could happen, they also will happen. I truly believe that this is the art of innovation.
Alex, thank you so much for these really, really touching and inspiring words, and I couldn't agree more. I think we'll quote you on a couple of things that you just mentioned, very important for the shapers of the future to keep this in mind. So welcome back on stage. Victoria is back with me. Victoria,
Hey.
welcome.
Hi.
And remotely, we have Eddie Lasebnik with us, Global Partnership Director at Cybellum. Eddie, very welcome. I can't hear him yet. Do we have him with us?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, great, perfect. Eddie, before we start, we're going to be talking about how to make a corporate startup partnership successful, Fireside Chat now. Before we start into the discussion, what do you guys do? Can you pitch Cybellum quickly?
Yeah, definitely. So Cybellum is about product security. So everything around the world now is connected. It's part of the IoT trend. Everything starting from defibrillator to refrigerators to automotive components. And from the moment they got connected, all these pieces, they got exposed and got more regulated. So with the exposure and regulation came the need to protect for cybersecurity penetration or hackers, and that's actually what Cybellum is about. We are enabling development and manufacturing companies to protect the product that they develop and produce.
Fantastic. Thank you for being with us. And I think, Victoria, you have a very interesting, let's say, track record of working together. You started very early. Meanwhile, they've exited already. So like across different stages of startups, you've been working with them together. Eddie, question for you. Do you think that this collaboration was crucial for your development as well? What was in it for you?
Yeah, well, definitely. The collaboration with AVL is super helpful, and I'm a big believer in that collaboration and in that partnership. It's helpful both on the networking and the reach out and on the thought leadership and understanding of the market. And yeah, AVL is a great partner to partner with.
Victoria, what would you say is important in different stages, like it was here? Do you approach and work together with startup differently in different stages? We've talked about that in the previous panel as well, so I'd be curious to see your point on that.
Yes, I definitely think that this is a very important point because it's important for the startup because they have different needs in different stages compared an early stage startup to a later stage startup. And also it is important as a corporate to have the awareness for that and also to have the awareness on what could be the outcome of the collaboration, what is the right form of partnership. When we talk about an early stage startup, for example, maybe completely other things are needed. Mentorship is needed maybe. Or a co-creation is a great possibility in an early stage. But of course, you need to be aware that the product is maybe not so mature at the beginning. So, but this doesn't mean that it can't develop a great partnership. It's just about the awareness and about being very transparent in the collaboration, I think.
Eddie, has the partnership, the mode of partnership, or what you do together changed alongside of your development from startups to now being acquired by a much bigger company?
Well, frankly, our discussions with AVL started at the point that Cybellum was already quite mature company. We were not at we were beyond exploration stage. We already had quite a few customers, quite a few reasonable presence in the market. So we were not the new kid around the block. So the acquisition by itself didn't change much in our relationship, but it was another boost of energy and another boost of reputation and credit that we are heading towards the right direction.
What what were the success factors in your particular case, be it structure, governance, trust, anything else that you could think of?
In the success of Sabellum or in the success of our collaboration with
Of your
AVL?
collaboration, be it with AVL or with any other corporates?
That's a great question. That's a real good one. So it actually touches on two things. Whether governance or a partnership program is needed even for a startup or as a smaller company in the game. And from my perspective, it is. The partnership is not a hobby, or at least it's not the way we address it in Sabellum. It's a full-time job, and that's something that has to be addressed seriously. That's actually why we have we devoted a lot of thought and invested a lot of manpower into making a full partnership program, which includes technical education and technical transparency. And AVL is a great partner on the transparency part and business collaboration and business understanding of the strategy. So it's having, even though the startup is very eager sometimes to jump into that collaboration and to be involved in that collaboration, having the right framework and the right, as Robert Frost said, good fans make good neighbors. So a good framework or good governance methodology in place enables to establish a solid partnership. And that's exactly how it was. It's sometimes not easy. It's not easy on the discussion, on the commercial discussions, of course, not on the legal agreements, but eventually it enables to build a mutually beneficial arrangement. So the governance part, or I would call it a framework of collaboration, that's definitely an important part in solid partnership activity.
Yeah. I also think that this is a very important point. And one thing Eddie mentioned was that taking it seriously. So partnerships are, I think, for the future, an important skill for corporates to have. Knowing how to maintain and how to build up partnerships will be one of the skills, I think, for the future. And also, like Eddie said, putting a lot of effort in it, of course, is important. So yeah, I can totally agree. And I think this was also something very cool with Sabellum, because they had a very great partnership approach as well. So two sides had an approach. We just needed to bring those things together. And this was great, because sometimes startups are very eager to jump into partnerships.
That's exactly what I was going to ask. Also, Eddie, how do you balance the need for the speed and the need for the structure and governance? Because many startups, like you say, that let's just do it and we'll figure out the governance and the details on the way. Eddie, what would you advise here? Is it worth of taking time for the structure before jumping into it?
Well, that's you're touching a very conflicting point, even within myself. Patience is not my best character. So, and that's not something that I'm practicing well. There is a need to put thought for a startup, for the smaller company, about how we would like to partner. What is our do's and does not, or what is acceptable for us, and what is something that we would even prefer to go out from the table. And after having that kind of a framework of understanding of how we would like to partner, then with the speed within that framework is something that can be done relatively quickly. So, and there are a lot, and that's something that I've learned, of things that can be promoted in parallel. For giving an example, legal is not secret, is always the part that takes a lot of time. So while the legal discussions are being conducted and while legal teams are trying to get their heads together, how to figure out a mutually acceptable way to put stuff, we, and AVL was a tremendous partner in that perspective, were able to do a lot of technical ramp up, a lot of business alignment. Of course, it requires a lot of transparency and capability of being fair to each other and personal connection. But we were able not to let the legal discussions block our activities, because we were very clear that legal will get aligned eventually. So we tried to promote all the other activities that are super important and have to be done as well. Technical, technology, business, marketing, language, all these parts that shall not be neglected were addressed in parallel to the legal discussion. So the need is there for being constructive and being governant and being clear to yourself, first and foremost, what's acceptable and what's not. But it doesn't have to be blocking progress, and it shall not be delaying progress. So that's a delicate line to walk on, but it's doable, I believe. Of course, with the right partner.
Yes, and Victoria, I guess that the earlier the startup, the less resources and time they will have to invest in, let's say, legal government structure and so on. So do you differentiate when you set up the collaboration partnership between early and you are maybe less demanding on the legal side? And how do you go about that?
Yes, so our governance is that when we get to know a startup, doesn't matter in which stage they are, we start with a quick proof of concept project. So where we get to know the technology, where we do something together, get to know each other, and have a first outcome, which we can already test with some friendly customers or test it in any way. And for that, we try to keep it as simple as possible. So we have a very lean governance. We have a very lean legal contract, for example. It's a 6-pager, if I'm right. So doing everything quite easy. And then, of course, when we know each other and when we are clearer about where we want to go, what is our vision and what is the way there, then, of course, we have another agreement. And then we start with all the other stuff. But still, we try to keep it as lean as possible. And as Eddie mentioned, for example, we try to do other things on the same run. For example, here, Eddie, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we wrote a paper together. So our technical department and the department from Zybellum started with writing a paper, which was our first market test, because we presented it on a conference and had the first customer feedback. So I think that there are ways what you can do and how you can handle it.
And you probably also learn from partnership to partnership and improve for the future.
Yes.
There are 2 questions in the chat for you, Victoria, and please, I would like to invite you all to send us questions in the chat. You just have to activate your chat on your left-hand side, click on it, and then it will open, and you can pass us the questions. So, very simple. What's in it for AFAEL? Why are you guys doing it?
What's in it for us? I'm a deep believer in open innovation and startup collaboration, of course. And I think what's in for us, why we're doing that, and why other corporates should do that as well, is that closed innovation is something very difficult in those times. So technology is moving fast. It's hard to keep the pace, of course, and therefore it is important to put our heads together, put them together with other corporates, with other startups, with universities in order to solve the challenges of our time. That's one thing. And the other thing is that I think when we are not collaborating, not working with startups, for example, there is a high tendency that we, let's say, we focus too much on ourselves. So we're in our room thinking the whole day about the same problem. And then if the product is ready, we sometimes don't meet the market. So this is something which can happen very quickly if you are not working in an open innovation environment, I think.
Eddie, maybe on the other hand, what's in it for you? What do you look for? What are you looking for in this partnership?
Yeah, definitely. So actually, if I may, I would like actually to present even an earlier stage startup than when Zybellum reached out to AVL. I would say when we reached out to other partners we had at the beginning of our growth. So there is some background noise. So when as a startup, there are a lot of pieces that are lacking. Usually a young age startup, definitely. There are so many things that you are lacking. For some of them, for example, are credit, not funds, but actually credit as reputation and networking, and even the ability or capability to close deals. That's something that usually startups or at the very early stages, are not excelling at. They usually have a good idea, a great implementation or technology skills, but these skills are something that are usually a bit less promoted or less developed. So by partnering with a good partner, it actually enables you to cover many of these bases, at least at the beginning, or at least to get a better reach in these elements at the very first stages. And actually, that opens the question to what is a good partner, or how do you identify a good partner?
Yes.
And that's not an easy question to answer. I had that exercise with myself several times, and that's actually, would it be a partner that actually has a good understanding of the topic, or would it be someone that is a organization that is well connected in the market? Would we prefer a big name or medium, small name? The ease of making business, for example, usually major name comes with a lot of processes and bureaucracy, which is very not fun and very not the pace of a startup. So, and there are many elements or aspects to how do you pick up the right partner, or how do you identify a good partner. And eventually it is, or at least to myself, of course, it would be great to have a partner, to identify partners that can cover more than one of these aspects. For example, our alignment with AVL on the strategic and on the tactical levels were a bingo from the very beginning. So it was clear that we have alignment on the sector, on the geographies, on the business plan, and so on. So that was great. But as a startup, you always have to prioritize and to think to yourself in your partnership program, which of these aspects are more important to you, and how to prioritize them. And if a partner is stronger on one element and much weaker on the other, you better compensate that with another partner or with other communities.
Mm-hmm. What kind of due diligence do you do on your partners? What's important for AVL when you decide which startups do you want to work with together?
Of course, firstly, it is very important that it somehow fits to our portfolio. So we have certain areas where we are looking for startups. But then it's very important for us to align on their roadmap and their strategy, because we always think that the strategy and the vision needs to fit together. So the first discussions, the first meetings are here, the most important ones, to get a feeling for that for me. But by that, of course, it's always a lot about the people you're working with, like always. Chemistry, you need empathy. You need to understand each other. And the cultures of the companies are more important than I thought in the beginning. So that here we have a cultural fit somehow, even though it's a startup and a corporate, there can be, even though...
in terms of core values, maybe, or...
Exactly. And very often, this is very important for a good or a bad partnership.
I'd like to pick up something that Eddie mentioned as well and combine it with one question from the audience. He was explaining what can you gain from corporate as a startup, and the question to you is, what is the range of support, engineering, finance, etc., provided by Creators Expeditions to the startup? So what is very concrete?
So when we created that program, we said we make it how every startup needs it. So it's very individual from each to each project. But in fact, it's mentoring from the technical side, but also from the business side. It's market access, of course. So bringing something to our customers together is a very important point. And by that, it's also a lot of industry know-how, which we can give to startups, I think.
And you decided for permanent scouting as opposed to accelerator batches with demo days, so it's never-ending scouting that you're providing, so to say.
Exactly. So also to all the startups out there, you can applicate all around the year, and this is also important for us because we do not want to miss something, of course, and therefore we decided to do permanent scouting. Exactly.
Perfect. Eddie, thank you very much for being with us and sharing your insights on that. Very exciting what you guys do. We have to also our editorial team look into it with more insights. Thank you for being with us, and
thank you, Eddie. See you. Bye.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Victoria.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now time is up, and we see you then later. And we're moving on with a very exciting keynote on radical innovation by Jean-Philippe Hagman. This will be super exciting, and I'd like to introduce him. Jean-Philippe has a background as a mechanical engineer and industrial designer. He founded and sold a startup, built up an interdisciplinary innovation team in one of Switzerland's largest energy companies, and wrote the highly acclaimed book, Stop Playing Innovation Theater. Very welcome, dear Jean-Philippe. The stage is yours, and we're all excited to hear you.
So hi, I'm also very excited to be here. Do you hear me all?
Yes, go ahead.
Super, great. So I named my presentation with a question that is open innovation the path to radical innovation? And I will start by right away answering that question. I think yes, but there is a but, and we are going to look at this, why I think it's not that easy. So we had a keynote before on the link between artists and innovators. And I think that fits quite well with my entry, because one famous artist has a famous quote, namely Picasso. He once said that as a child, like every child is an artist. Like the difficulty is to remain one as you grow older. And I want to change that a little bit. And that's my free interpretation of his quote, which says that as a startup, there are quite a few companies that are innovators. The difficulty lies in remaining one as an established company. And I want to take the look from the established company at the subject of innovation. But now let's start a bit earlier, because we are talking about innovation here like since an hour. And I think we haven't really defined what innovation is. So let's ask ourselves, what is innovation? And I think there is not one answer to that. So there are many different answers that you can give if you ask yourself, what is an innovation? And I will start by saying that there is a common claim that I hear quite often, that an innovation is you have a great idea and then you implement that. So innovation is not just a great idea, it's basically implementation of a great idea. But in my eyes, there are several problems with that claim. So what is a great idea? How do you find out what is a great idea? An idea can be something like, without details that you think might be good, but then you find out that, well, there was an ugly duckling and it would not transform into a beautiful swan. And also, if you focus too much on great ideas, you're looking for ideas, you make idea competitions and so on and so forth. I think, and we have heard that in the discussions before, for innovation, you need a lot more than just a great idea and implementation. So one very simple definition for innovation is that an innovation is something new that creates added value. So you have those two things. It has to be somehow new and it has to create value. Otherwise, just new is not really useful. But if you just take this claim and you say, okay, innovation is everything that is new and adds value, then it's quite easy to name yourself an innovator, because each company does something new in a while. So I think it's important to distinguish between incremental innovation and radical innovation. So incremental innovation is if you take something that you already know, a solution that you already provide, a product that you already have, and you improve on that. So you optimize things that you already know. So that's an incremental innovation. And on the other hand, you have the radical innovation, which comes from the word radix, which means root. So you go back to the root and you ask yourself, how can we solve a problem in a new way? So that's a very rough definition of a radical innovation. And I would say it is more and more important for companies to be able to come up with radical innovation. But that is a big problem. So it is really, really hard for established companies to come up with radical innovation. But first of all, I want to go back to that something new that creates value, because there are two different statements in there. So new and added value. And one question that arises is, well, new for whom? And this is something that I work with many companies on. If they want to have like a radical innovation, then they ask themselves, so when is it an innovation? If it's new for us? So in like the very basic is, if it's new for us as a company. We haven't done that before. So for us, that's new. Maybe our competitors, they already do it, but we haven't done that. So that's like the very, the kind of the simplest form of new. If you go a bit further, then it's new for the market. And the outer bubble is new for the world. So many companies, they kind of think of, I want to build the new iPhone or something like this. But in my perspective, that's an aim that is too high. Actually, the most important part, in my experience, by working with company, is the first one. If it's new for the company, it doesn't matter like how new it is for the market or the world. If it's new for the company, that's the hardest part. And the reason for that is that a company is a bit like a board game, like chess. You have a board game and then you have rules. And in a board game, if you buy a board game like chess, there are no people in that board game, because the board game chess is a game that is complete without people, but you cannot play it without people. And a bit the same is a company. A company is an organization, is a system that has rules, has norms, has processes, has an aim, and the people play a role. Like in chess, if you're playing chess, then you play by the rules. And in many organizations, or in any organization that is a system, the system itself has a meaning, has a goal. And that goal is basically to scale up and to make the solutions that you already have more efficiently. And this aim is kind of, in conflict with the aim of coming up with innovation, or radical innovation, if you say so. So like many problems that you see in companies when it comes to innovation is because the whole company, all the processes, all the norms, all the culture, the people, the skills, and everything is here for the thing that you're already doing, for your core competencies, and not for new products, new services, new business models. So if you take that dart that I made here, and you have in the bullseye, you have like things we already do. Then you have resources, you have machines, you have skills, you have processes, and you have also an identity as a company. And if your idea lands in the bullseye, then most of the times it's not that complicated for a company to do that. But in most cases, those are incremental innovation. So if it fits already your identity, if it is not in conflict with your processes, with your resources, with your skills, most of the times it's an incremental innovation, but that's not where the problem lies. The problem lies if you throw the idea a bit further away from the bullseye. And there is where you find the radical innovation. So what I want to give you is that I think I'm convinced that open innovation is key to radical innovation. And the reason why is, as a company, you don't have the skills, the resources, the processes, and so on for ideas, for concepts that are outside of what you already do. So you need other people, you need other like partners to come up with. So I think it is the right way to go into collaborations. I think it's the right way to look for like interesting startups and to collaborate with them. I think it's a lot harder to come up with radical innovation if you just do it within your own four walls. And now the big, like, what is the but here? Why is it so difficult? So if you look at a company, if an established company, and the company is a bit bigger, then sometimes, hopefully, they have a innovation department or team. Those two things, the core business and the innovation team, they are different systems for itself. They are in constant clash with each other. One is for security and like known things. They make money. They want security. They want zero mistakes and failures. And innovation is the complete opposite. They don't make money yet. They look for uncertainties. They like risk. They make experiments. They don't know what the truth is, so they look for it. So those two systems are in a clash with each other. And the problem with collaboration or open innovation is that you add more partners to that already difficult construct. So you have a startup that also has to link to that construct somehow. And I'm not even talking about like buying a startup or, investing in a startup, but just, the relationship. And I think most of the times the relationship between innovation team and startup is the easiest link here. So the difficult links is from the core business to the innovation team and from the core business to the startup. And very often the innovation team and the startups, they're kind of in one team, like we understand each other. We have like kind of the same culture and mindset. And they have to kind of fight against the core business, or fight is maybe a wrong word, but they have to tell them how important it is, and that they have to invest in. So I see there the biggest hurdles and problems for an open innovation approach is how to tell the core business that innovation is something that is important but also urgent, and you have to put a lot of effort and focus on it, because most companies, they see it as a nice to have and we don't need it now. And if we are in a crisis, then we can just skip it, So those are the problems that I see arise the most if you go into open innovation. But as to close my keynote, I think it is the right way to go into open innovation. I think it is a lot harder to do it the other way around. But it is not easy. Innovation is very complex and innovation is not easy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jean-Philippe. And in the meantime, Sebastian Jaks joined me in studio. He's an engineer by training and entrepreneur by trade, and is heading the startup program Creators Expeditions at AVL. Welcome, Sebastian.
Hey, Jan.
And we have the Romina with us, who leads one of Shell's global startup innovation programs called Shell Startup Engine. Romina, very welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So before we discuss all other topics, let's just reflect and so to say, take the inputs that Jean-Philippe gave us in terms of incremental and radical innovation. That was a good point. Jean-Philippe, would you say that, I'll be provocative now, that everything what is not radical innovation is more kind of a marketing gag in terms of collaborating with startups? More of no.
No, not at all. I mean, it is vital to go into incremental innovation. So because that's how you stay successful in the short run. So it is fine to look for help or collaborations in the incremental part, but I think it is not the only thing that you should do. If you just do that, then you won't survive the long run. So I'm not here to say that incremental innovation, don't look for that and it's peanuts. It is important, and it is also not that easy to come up with incremental innovation.
Mm-hmm. Creators Expedition, where would you see yourself? Is it both, or is it on the radical side?
So it's definitely both. So we started off with our program, and we've seen a lot of examples today. So I think the audience already knows what we're doing roughly is we are dealing with startups to really connect to our core strategy. Mm-hmm. And if we are connecting startups to our core strategy, of course, it's also incremental in innovation, which means we improve ourselves, our offerings, and what we're providing for the market. Still, and even more, we think that startups can and should be giving us an outside-in view on what demands are there based on our market and adjacent markets, which then should and also would lead to rather radical innovations, which are not so much buying into our core business models as of now.
Mm-hmm. Referring to the graphic with innovation unit and startup kind of versus core business, do you connect more easily with startups than with the core business? Can you relate to that graphic?
We can totally relate to that graphic. One thing is missing in that graph. I think we come to that later, which is partners which are not startups, but related to that three-way relationship between core business, innovation unit, and startups. It's exactly as Jean-Philippe was saying. But units like ours, which is not just or not seen as a innovation unit itself, but as a startup unit and a partnership unit, really should fulfill that role to be the connector to the outside world as well as to the core unit. So I can very much relate and also relate to which are the rather complex connections with startups. Jean-Philippe, you're definitely right. With other partners, I think if we put in other companies, also corporates, on that graph, there is 3 complex links then.
Okay, Romina, what about you guys? Shell Startup Engine sounds very exciting. Could you just give us a short pitch on what you guys do and how do you position your unit on the incremental or the radical side, or both, similar to AVL?
Yeah, thanks, Dejan. Definitely, Shell Startup Engine, well, first of all, is a very new program in Shell. It's been around for 2 years. And it's an accelerator program. So we look at working with early stage startups. We take them through an acceleration program, and then we end the cohort. Yeah, we do this in different countries at the moment, and there was some discussion around, the solutions that we're looking for from startups in the different countries. How do we, what do we go after? So very, very well aligned with our lines of businesses in that country. Shell Startup Engine also sits within Shell Social Investment. And later I will talk a little bit about the different innovation vehicles that Shell has. But this one is really looking to progress solutions towards the energy transition, relevant to Shell businesses, but also relevant to the needs in which the country in which the program is located. And we also look at developing the energy startup ecosystem, which is still pretty nascent around the world. So how do we connect the different players and make them relevant for the startups? In terms of radical versus incremental innovation, I think a bit of both. For Startup Engine, I would say it is more on the incremental side. Though, every now and then we do end up working with a startup, which is a completely novel technology, a new way of solving a problem. But there are also quite heavy risks associated with that, especially in energy. There's a very long period of maturity. So a number of factors, but I agree that radical innovation is much more difficult. And also, Jean-Philippe, what you said about, the core business innovation team and the startup, I think absolutely spot on how that works and how that partnership looks like. It's a very tough one to crack as well, even in a company like ours.
And I think this is a very good quote, Jean-Philippe, as well. Did I get you correctly? Radical innovation without open innovation is rather impossible.
Exactly, because, the radical part of innovation is how different it is from what we did so far. Radical doesn't have to be, I don't like to look at a result and then classify it as radical or not radical. I don't care, if it's a useful innovation, I don't care whether it's radical or incremental. The classification is rather like, is it radical or incremental for the organization that is trying to implement it? So, if it's radical, then you haven't done that before. You need new processes, you need new skills, you need, a new mindset. And I also put in the identity, that's a very important part, because each organization has a identity. Like we see each other as a, automotive manufacturer or something like this. So if you come up with something that actually fits the company, but doesn't fit that narrative, it's quite hard, So yes, incremental radical innovation, I think it's maybe not impossible, but really, 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 really hard to do it by yourself. You would need to build up a new kind of a system within your system to do that.
If I can maybe add to that, Jean-Philippe, we have something called, and I think this is what you're talking about, something called Shell TechWorks, which is based in Boston. And there we look at, there's a team of entrepreneurs and scientists, and we actually look at, adjacent industries. So let's say, what in robotics or what in space exploration, for instance, can work in energy completely different from what we do. And then there's a bit of a sandbox environment created to test that and see what the applications could be. It's very difficult and a small setup. But absolutely, very complex to put together, and it takes a long time for something like this to work out and prove, if I may say that.
Yes. So it also needs a really hard commitment from the top of the company. They need to invest many years without gaining anything from that in many years.
Horizon 3, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And most companies, they don't stick to that. They say, but in 3 years or
where's the return?
Even shorter.
Yeah,
exactly.
I even want to build upon that and go one step further and say, and now not opening up the whole difficulty and problem of our industries are all changing fast. But still it is the case, in our core industry, automotive and mobility, we face a lot of changes currently going into more digital environments, software-defined cars. We're going from individual mobility to shared mobility. We're going from driver in the seat mobility to autonomous and automated mobility. So there is so much going on and happening. I missed out alternative drivetrains going from fuel-based to electrified and stuff. It is a lot of change happening. And I think, and I would relate to that very much in saying, we need to be doing things differently than in the past. We need to innovate beyond our borders. And so, and I think that's what Jean-Philippe and Romina were also telling, there is no way around doing radical innovation too. It doesn't mean we should skip off the core innovation, the incremental. But we also need to do the radical one. And building on that is getting insights in those new technology, getting insights in those new ways of acting technology-wise, but also business-wise, in our mind is something which you should and could do in partnerships with others, and either out of that industry or just others who also face the same problem. So, because in a group, you may be more successful than on your own. And I think there is the power in it. And then building on that graph that Jean-Philippe has drawn and saying, if we now would also draw a circle for a partner company, which is not a startup, but could be something like Shell and AVL, we would also bring in new perspectives. We would see that we have in those circles of, is it new to us, is it new to the market? We also have a third circle then, is it new to the partner or isn't it? And if it's not, maybe we can learn from each other and be faster, quicker, and more efficient when doing new things. I think that's the way why we say the collaboration and open innovation approach is so essential when dealing with the hustles that we are seeing currently.
Do you think that partnerships among enterprise would have more acceptance in the core business? Would they understand this better? Or do you also have this translation need into the core business?
No, you have also the translation need. We call partners in our core business either suppliers or customers. Meaning they have well-defined roles and everybody knows what's going on with them. So key account management dealing with our customers, the procurement very much knows how to deal with suppliers. But there is a lot of that in between when you're building up joint business offerings to customers. Is that then a supplier or is it a partner, and how to deal with that partner? So long story short, we, of course, all of us as companies have relationships in our core business. But when going beyond that, we need to define different ways of how to interact with each other.
Romina, I wanted to pick up on one thing. You mentioned a few different structures within Shell, deep tech and the engine that you had. Is it crucial in order to assure or secure incremental and radical innovation and maybe also financial participation maybe in startups? Is it crucial to have different vehicles, different methods and structures?
That's a great question, Dejan. And I think it's great to have it. It also comes with its challenges. But indeed, so if I say, there's a whole sort of chain of different types of engagements that you do with the startup world, with different outcomes that you want out of those engagements. So for instance, we have a Shell research alliance team that works with at the university levels, with startup incubators in universities, looking at PhD scientists and looking at technologies. Then you have something else called Game Changer, which is looking at really developing novel technologies that are interesting to this to the energy space. And these are scientists working with very early stage unproven technologies to develop the technology. Then you have a program like Startup Engine, which is accelerating startups which already have a minimum viable product, but they need to understand how to go to market. And we make a lot of things available during that program. Then you have Shell Ventures, which is investing in startups, series level investments, or acquiring companies, right? So you have the whole buy, build, partner, invest kind of setup, and it is good to have different mechanisms with which to engage, because there are many different things you can do with startups and support startups. But of course, it does come with challenges. I think even within that innovation space, there are not very good connections all the time. Or sometimes you say, hey, we're doing this, and in a company like ours, someone else is doing it too, and we never even knew about it, because then we can come together. And then what Sebastian said about, then you have partners that you work with, and then that whole gray area extends there, But it's a good problem to have, because, we're driving towards an ambition, and it's a good thing to do, good challenge.
Jean-Philippe, what is your maybe methodic and expert view on that? Different structures needed for different types of collaboration?
Yeah, sure. There are several interesting things that I pick up here. Like one thing is the part that in large corporations, like the bigger they are, the more like cells you have that do something related to innovation, and like most times those cells are not very good connected, and that is very, very essential, because like the innovators, they should work together. But that doesn't mean that they have like really strong overlaps, maybe. But even if they don't have strong overlaps, that's kind of the one side of the system that is like part of the same system, that is a weight against the other system, the core business. And I think what also Sebastian said is that as the world like accelerates in change, the core business has to change itself anyway. So that's a skill that the core business has to learn, and the best way to do that is by like forcing it to change with initiatives that like the ones that you have here. Mm-hmm. So see it also as kind of a training for the core business. And the important part is the link between those systems. I call it bridge builder. So when I work with companies, I always look for bridge builder. So who are the persons who are between the worlds, who travel between them and are part of both, who feel that they are that they're really in both, like they are in the core business, but they also have a role in innovation. Those people are very essential in order to for those systems to not fall apart, to have a transfer, to have connection. So I think that's like one key for innovation, is to have that bridges.
And just one additional question, because you said something very interesting before. You said that the radical innovation for you is not measured on the outcome of the product, but on the process. Is the process radical to the organization? Who is in it? Would that mean that the product, the outcome of the radical innovation eventually has to come back to the core business?
Can be. I mean, there are many different forms, how you can do that. But I say in an ideal world, a company wants to survive. And in order to survive, the company itself needs to transform with the environment, with the context. So that's like the ideal world. And in order to do that, it's important to bring the innovations back to the core. But the more radical they are, the more difficult it is. So there is also the other case where, like a bit extreme, formulated extreme, is that you have your core business, you build up something small that grows bigger, and the other one grows smaller, and in the end, you're something new, completely new. And in between, you have like all the 50 shades of gray, it can be anything between that. It doesn't have to, but when I work with customers, like with companies, I try to go for the how to transform the core business like step by step. It doesn't have to, or it can't be radical. The transformation can't be radical, but with small doses of radical innovation, or kind of more radical for the company, how to transform the company into something new.
I'll come back to this and open innovation being crucial in partnerships to radical innovation in a second. We have an announcement to make, a small breaking news for you guys before we move to that. Jean-Philippe, you said one more thing that I'd like to shortly reflect with you guys. You said many times innovation is, I think you used the word, a nice to have. What would you say? It's, we talk about, do corporates that collaborate with startups need to take equity in startups? Do they need to make a joint venture program? How do you measure, or how do you measure the level of seriousness that the corporate partner has in this collaboration with startups, so it is not just, I think the way you call it, innovation theater? Is it good to demand for equity, or is it not necessary?
Not necessary. I mean, there are different forms on how to measure if it's serious. I mean, money can be one, but there are companies who have a lot of money, and it's rather easy to give a bit of money. That doesn't really have to mean that it's serious. But I think more important is like how much time is invested from people with like the power of really making decisions within a company, like C-level and so on. If they really invest time to get to know what are those startups doing, what is the innovation team doing, what are the innovation initiatives doing, and really investing time, I think that's even more a sign of seriousness than just giving money. I mean, that's important, but sometimes it's easier to give money to something than to spend time.
I think that's a very important point.
Yeah, I would. That resonates very well to me. So I think also to answer your first question, no, I don't think that investment is the only way to show that things are serious. Not at all. I think that the management attention, as Jean-Philippe was saying, is definitely one of the factors that we also see that helps engaging and fast and increasing also the speed of a partnership model. I'd see the topic of, which is most probably also the hardest one, to open up the core to that relationship. So building the bridge and seeing that that bridge is also stable and there and not just fictional. So not the dotted line like on the picture we've seen before, but really a strong connection between the partner and the core business. This is the seriousness that's not easy to get to, but this is what we should achieve as those who are building those bridges. This is how I see it. So if as soon as there is a connection between the core business units plus the external partner, you also feel that the relationship is growing much faster than if it's just a vague connection and we meet from here to there and sometimes. So building the bridge fast and early in the process is key.
And the bridge
and like who builds the bridge, right? It's like, is it a one-way bridge where one side really wants that bridge and needs that bridge, but the other side says like, yeah, build it, we don't care? or is it, both parts want that bridge and meet in halfway, kind of literally speaking.
I think that's super important, and that's what I wanted to ask you still. Is it important that parties on that bridge meet as equal partners, or am I a big enterprise on one side expecting my junior partner to come across? No,
not at all. So to me, meeting on eye level in the middle is exactly what we need to intend. How big, however big the partner is.
Can you achieve that also in the core business? These are experts who have been doing things very, very well since decades. Can they perceive startup as somebody that they can meet on the eye level?
Yes, and it is work to do. So it's not a given. So it doesn't start with everybody is seeing that the same way. But on the other hand, we are a rather big corporate for Austrian sizes, but working with guys like Shell, we are the smaller ones. And it's the same here to find a common ground, to find how we are connecting with each other and how we are building those bridges. So it's not always that we're the bigger one.
That's a good point. Romina, so you're the biggest one in the round. So what would you say?
No, I think that, to the previous point about, whether it's about money and whether it's time, I think that's so, that is so important, because when we started the Startup Engine program, we actually spoke to a bunch of startups that we work with across the world. And we asked them to list the top reasons why would they join a program like this with Shell? What do they look for? And the number one item on that list was expertise. It was time and expertise of the people. I think the number two was really the networks and the connections with the networks that we have. Money came in third or fourth, because that's something that, so it's not the top priority. So absolutely agree on that, for many organizations, it's easy to give money. And you see a lot of this innovation theater, Jean-Philippe, you do a competition, call for startups, 100,000 cash prize, 2 hours, and then it's done. And there is no follow-up from that, Of course, maybe that's needed in the beginning. Everybody wants to do something. It's a good place to start. But if you keep doing the same thing again and again, it's not adding any value. But in terms of the bridge, and I would give a very, example which actually happened. So we've done a few proof of concepts in one of the Startup Engine programs. And there's an innovation team, there's core business, and these proof of concepts are, of course, happening with the core business. And the question is that then how did that really happen? And I think that's the one opportunity is we have a lot of Shell experts with many years of experience, of course, mentoring these startups with some solid time commitment that they give. And it's and what I see from our people, and this probably is across with technology experts, they're very excited to see startups. They're very excited to see what's an emerging technology, what can we do with this, what's the potential for this, so that people come on the same level. So whether it's an expert and a startup, and a lot of the startup founders are experts in their own right, so they're not exactly small. They're coming up with great stuff. And then this relationship over an acceleration program of 3 to 6 months is where you get the chance to really understand the startup, to do a lot of the due diligence. And I think there was a conversation happening before this panel, about AVL's program as well, that you have some time to understand, what can the startup do, what's the technology, you can test it during an acceleration program. And this is how the bridges currently, I can see in a very small spectrum, the bridges are being built here because there are proof of concepts of some new technologies that we're trying to do with the core business. It's a small step, and there are more, bigger steps in other parts of the organization, but this is tangible that we see these bridges being built. Yeah.
Fantastic. Now, we have a small breaking news to share with you guys. We've been talking about open innovation being crucial for radical innovation and partnership, not only among startups, also among enterprise clients. Romina, may I ask you to break down the news for us? What did you guys come up with?
No, this is a very happy moment. Thank you so much for the stage. So Shell and AVL are joining hands to have a startup program together. So we partner up on doing a program on the future of mobility, and really looking actually at the societal impacts of some of the topics within mobility. So it is mobility focused, but it also has a very strong link with societal impact, so some of the UN SDGs. And we've actually spent a lot of time discussing, what the focus areas should be. We've agreed on that, and we're currently scouting for startups. Seb, to you to add.
I just can say that we feel very much honored to be joining forces with you guys, and I want to include also Microsoft as the third partner, who unfortunately couldn't join the panel today because of a sick leave. We are happy because that gives us exactly that opportunity that we would need. Namely, we have well-established companies out of 3 totally different areas: energy, automotive technology, and IT technology from Microsoft in the broadest sense, to foster joint innovation with opening up our minds how we could, and this is kind of the self-reflection that, like Romina has said, we've done in the recent month, how we could contribute as partners into a program and also find common ground on which we want to position ourselves in terms of looking out for third parties, namely startups, that help us to make our vision of a sustainable future in mobility true. And it's really not just exciting to join forces with two multinationals, it's also exciting because of the opportunity that we are opening up with that, namely opportunity for the startups with those three companies to work together, but also the opportunity for us, because the reach of Creators Expedition, and we've seen a lot, as I said before today, isn't small, but the reach of joint forces between Shell, Microsoft, and ourselves is much further and much bigger. And I'm so excited of what we're seeing there and what we're having. As Romina said, we're within the application phase, a lot of very challenging and interesting applications already there. Looking forward for more.
And this is in addition to your programs that are running now?
That's in addition.
That's right. Yep. Sorry, Sebastian, go ahead.
No, to us, it's definitely in addition, and the same is for you guys, I guess, but Romina, take it.
No, absolutely. This is sort of, yeah, in addition, we've got existing programs, lots of stuff we do, but this was a great opportunity. And, we've been speaking for months on how to craft this. And I can tell you, it's not easy to find that common ground, but it is there. It just requires some commitment and effort, and we found it. And we're indeed looking at very interesting startups. So all the startups online, we're looking for startups in mobility. And of course, there are many opportunities. And this is the first collaboration that we do. And there are lots of learnings that will come. And I think this is a great way to test this partnership and see what value we are providing to the startups. And that's really the number one criteria, I would say. We come together to make sure that we can have tangible value across these big forces for the startups.
So what's in it for startups if they join this? What kind of value can you create? As I assume, you are not just organizing a mutual innovation theater.
Sebastian, do you want to, or I can? So the startups run through the.
Go ahead.
They go through the acceleration program first, yeah. So we have the startup engine, quite a well-defined acceleration program. So the top startups that get selected, they go through this. But also in the whole, whether it's a selection process, whether it's acceleration process, there are a number of key engagements over 5 months where we provide a lot of, other than just the program, there's a lot of access to our networks, whether that's Shell, AVL, Microsoft, whether it's some customers, suppliers, it's opportunities for POCs. It's also possible, and when we're actually looking at some of the startup profiles, and in the group that we have together, we also start discussing, all right, maybe this startup, may not be in this particular program, but you know what, we have this other thing, within the organization where the startup could actually do very well. So these are the bit of discussions that we're currently having, but Sebastian, please add.
Yeah, so I think it's exactly like you said, Romina. It's the opening of our networks, opening up our relationships and the partnerships that we are having to customers and then suppliers to our ecosystems is what we can bring in there. This is what we can offer to the startups, and which will be a hands-on mentality through a very guided program like Romina just described. So it's going to be really exciting how we will be able to bring those different perspectives of us corporates into the startups, and on the other hand, also understand much better, because of our different backgrounds, what the market drivers, what the needs in the industry really are emerging there. So, and this is what I'm looking forward to. Yeah.
Jean-Philippe, we have opportunity now to challenge this program as well, also with your expertise. What do you think is crucial to success in a kind of multi-enterprise and open innovation process? Have you seen such programs on the market?
To be honest, no. I guess there are many other such programs, but I'm not in contact with one that you have like, some like big corporations coming together. So I see many benefits. Time will tell what the startups really want from that. You came up with different things, and then you will see like which part is like more essential than the other part, and you will adjust to it. I think the big challenge will be, the more people the more parties you have, the more complex the whole thing gets. So I think to manage that, like the different companies, then the links within the companies, and then the startups, and if the startups also want to link with each other, and so on and so forth. So I guess that's the biggest challenge I see. But as I mentioned before, I think it is the right way to go. Open innovation is the way to go.
We wouldn't be innovators if we wouldn't say that we are also working in an iterative and agile way. That means we need to do fast learning. We need to understand, exactly like Jean-Philippe said, we need to understand what worked well, keep it, what didn't work well, adapt it. And I think it's the first time we do it together. There will be huge learning curves, I'm sure, but I know that the people who are involved will take those learning curves, and it will be something where we quickly provide that benefit and really want to avoid that it is at the end just something of an innovation theater which didn't bring value to all parties.
We definitely need to do a talk 6 months after you have done it to gather all the learnings. And I'm really grateful for you that you're so open talking about these things, and it's exactly the way it should be, the way you do it. Romina, can we just give some hard facts as well for anybody in our audience who might be willing to join? Website, where can they find it? What's the criteria? Just some hard facts.
Yeah, definitely. If you go on Google and type Shell Startup Engine Social Impact, you will find it. The website is there. The application link is on there, and I guess you can read up about the program. It is on let's say this first round that we do together. It is on the future of mobility. There is a focus on sustainability, so we're looking at a few areas. There's reducing carbon emissions. There is zero waste. Lifetime well-being, and there's access and inclusivity, as the sort of 4 broad areas that we're looking at for startups.
And all stages, or do you look?
Yeah. So it's early to growth stage. Yeah. So pretty much an accelerator program benefits startups that are in this stage. If they're beyond raising series level investments, and probably an accelerator program is not very beneficial. Yeah. But I would really leave that to the startup. Take a look at the website. Please apply.
Perfect. That's final words for this panel. Jean-Philippe, thank you so much for your inspiring intro and for all the insights that we got from this panel. Romina, thank you so much, and we'll keep in touch to learn more from all of your experiences and programs. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sebastian, all that it's left, it's our wrap-up of this day. It was, for me, really fantastic. I've been on daily basis confronted with these topics, researching, dealing with interviews, and I learned new things today. So it's really exciting that you are providing this platform, sharing very authentically all these experiences, and maybe to ask you what were your takeaways and what's next to come.
So first of all, thanks for having us. And this is also why we like to work with you guys, because you already know so much about the innovation landscapes and industries and ongoing programs. And still, it is a pleasure for us to discuss those things and get that fruitful feedback. So to me, the day was really exciting as well, because it's the first time we've done such a launch, and it is overwhelming how many participants we have had. So around 200 people were joining throughout the whole program, as far as I've followed it outside. Insights into how the startups work, also worked with us. Honored to get so much positive feedback from their side, but also some kind of critique, which is not negative, but something we should learn out of, as well as seeing that the different stages of collaboration, from startup early stage, startup established, plus how we are working with corporates, is something which I really think we want to share that with the network and ecosystem, so the people who participated. Why? Because this is also kind of that openness, you know? So openness starts with being open about what we are doing, and leaving comments, leaving opinions to the ones who are part of that ecosystem, so that the ecosystem grows through that openness. And collaboration is key. We have heard that so often, and I think, and I'm looking forward to, increasing the collaboration, so working together with other corporates, working together on different programs, maybe with startups or even without startups. This is what we really do and continue doing, not to forget about the topic that Alex has introduced to us. So the inspiring work of going beyond industry, even going beyond business, going into art and going into social responsibility programs, which is what we are standing for, and which is where we all invite our partners, our ecosystems to join in.
Perfect. Nothing to add to this really inspiring closing. Maybe just on the organizational side, networking will start in a minute, and you'll have 30 minutes time on your left-hand side. Just click on the button networking, and you can join speed dating and meet inspiring people. We had I think over 500 people joining this event, and at any point of the event, over 200 participating in content. So congratulations on that as well. And it was our pleasure to have you here to share these insights with you. Thank you for being with us today. We'll keep you posted on all the future activities, and enjoy the networking now. Thank you for this partnership, Sebastian.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, and ciao.